I feel like the come up is constantly just adapting to like things and being like from a blog era to then a streaming era to then SoundCloud and being like, oh, now I have to drop stuff on SoundCloud. Then Instagram emerges and you're like, oh, you can't just be on Twitter and Facebook. You now have to get an Instagram. And
Instagram,
then
TikTok,
like,
and
you have to have everything.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Rapchat Sessions podcast. I'm Classy Beats, the community director here and producer, and I'm excited to welcome our guest today, Kye Nathaniel. Kye, thanks for coming on, man.
How's it going? Yeah, no problem, man.
Appreciate you coming on. Yeah, man, this is going to be a great one. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. You know, kind of my favorite thing to do is ask about the come up story. Everybody loves the come up story. So kind of, tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got started, what got you into music and all that good stuff.
Yeah, cool. So, I pretty much grew up around music. So like my dad was a musician. So were a lot of other people in like my family and stuff like that. So he was a jazz musician.
That's awesome.
He's been like Grammy nominated like 3 times. He was in, he is pretty nuts.
That's crazy.
He was in, have you ever played the video game Parappa the Rapper?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's in that game as well. He's Papa Parappa and he's PJ Barry.
That's
Parappa the Rapper's like best friend. Yeah. So being like younger, like my house always had like all different types of music, like from Motown to like soft rock, like any type of music you can think of, like we're listening to, especially like live music, jazz.
Yeah.
And then like I remember being little, going to like concerts, like Newport Jazz Festival with them and like all these other places. So like I always just loved music. And then as I got older, like I was always into like writing short stories and like poetry and stuff like that. And then that eventually became like music oriented into like writing songs and stuff. Because even when I was little, like I went from playing like the drums to like saxophone and like all these other instruments. Yeah. And then I never was really like writing. Like I remember when I was a little kid, like I wrote like obviously like songs, but like they were like weird, like not like the type of stuff I write now. Yeah. And it was like before like you knew people who made beats. So you're just like taking random beats from like CDs or like burning them. Like I remember the first one I wrote was like to like a random like IMX beat because they just happened to have an instrumental on the like tape with like that was a dude from Immature, the dude what was it, Roger, and like on the Marcus Houston. So I was like writing on those and I didn't like write anything for like a while. Then I remember in like high school and like junior high, like I was like freestyling and stuff like that. And then eventually like we go to like parties or whatever. And every once in a while, like you start drinking and then like you start getting nice. It's like, oh, you should rap something, did it? And like, it became like a thing. It's like, oh, he can like freestyle and stuff like that. So like at parties, people just were like, oh, like if people were doing it, like I would never like just initiate it. It would always be like someone else was already rapping. And then I'd happen to like walk by and they'd be like, yo, he's nice. Go do something. I'm like, nah, like whatever. And then eventually if I was drinking enough, it'd start. And then over time, people were like, yo, you're just actually like really good. You should actually like write music. Wow. And I was like, yeah. And I was just like, I thought about it. And then like I did it like privately for like a long time. And I like being that my dad was who he was and like having a lot of like other like uncles and stuff. Like my uncle Mo worked with like Michael Jackson and was like on the This Is It tour. And like then my godfathers worked with like Earth, Wind and Fire, like everyone else.
That's amazing.
I was just like very meticulous with my stuff and just was like, my fear was my dad being like, yo, you are trash. Like,
don't ever
like,
touch
don't ever put
again.
this up. Yeah, I'm like, don't ever put music out like whatever. So like I remember him being like, hey, like I know you're working on stuff. Like I'd love to hear it sometime. And I was always just like, yeah, maybe sometime, but like right now, not. And he was like, I get it. I'm just like, I just really didn't want. I was so private with it, and then like periodically, like I don't remember what point it was. Like I was writing. I just did once again, like I said, I didn't have beats, so like I was just writing over like instruments. I just would go on like YouTube and like steal beats and just like record over them, but never put them out. So I had like a large assortment of just like freestyles that like never came out. Yeah. And then I would always compare them to like the artists who I liked and was like, is this better than this? Could this compete with this? And if it couldn't, I'm like, all right, cool. I don't feel like I'm where I should be. Where lyrically, this stuff, like, I feel like even if I go to like the first stuff I was writing when I really started writing, like early on, like was always good. It just was like the flows weren't like, and the pockets weren't where they should be. But like if you just read them, they were really good. But it's still learning how to like develop your flows and like writing abilities and like how many, like not trying to squeeze so many words in all the time, because then it just gets jumbled and the clarity's not there. So it was learning all those things and just like studying it and doing like what they call the 10,000 hours. And I felt like once I hit like that point where I was like, oh, I'm like good at this now. So then that's when I put out like my first song. And that was, I think that was around the time when I think that was actually the first time my dad actually heard any of my music. So I didn't play him anything until that
point. For that whole time? That's crazy.
Yeah, I went like years without ever playing him one song, like ever. Wow. And then that was the first one. And then I remember we heard it was a song called On Top. And it was off of a project that got like wiped, like because like my hard drive crashed and everything. So I lost like everything I ever did. But there's like, it's still out. Like I've never taken it down. Like I know I saw your previous podcast where I forgot who you were talking to. It was a woman. And she was like, yeah, you just don't want to put out a bunch of stuff and then people go back and find it. And that was also another fear of mine where I was like, I don't want to put out a bunch of stuff during the period of when I'm figuring it out. Like, and you have all these like rough drafts of like all this music that is like me finding myself in terrible or like not terrible, but
with the auto tune out of key and
just everything really bad.
Yeah.
And that was another thing too, because I remember like growing up and watching like people who were rapping in like high school and like everything else. And it was when they were trying before they got like good. So by the time they got good, nobody gave a fuck anymore. Like it was just like, oh, like if you're like, oh, like I popped this music, they're like, oh, I heard all his first stuff. I'm never listening to anything else. Like because you only have one time to make a first impression, and that's how I felt with like even with my dad or like anyone else. I was like, if I put out something, it has to be like really good.
Yeah.
So with On Top, it was like Ricky Bobby themed because the whole concept of the project was flipping channels, and instead of a mixtape, it was a theme tape. So I pretty much the concept was like daydreaming while like half baked in front of the television and like falling asleep and waking back up. But every time you wake up, it's like a different show's on. So each song was themed off of like a different show. And On Top took a theme from like Ricky Bobby. And that song, honestly, it's pretty nuts. It was like my first one. And that song got me in contact with like Wyclef because he found it. Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. So I heard, so he called me. It took a while before it hit him. Like somebody heard it and then pretty much was like, oh, this dude's dope. I thought you would like this, and gave it to him. And then he found my like contact information and called me, but I didn't know it was him. And I've never answered numbers I don't know. Cause like I've always lived by like, oh, if it's important, you'll leave me a message. Text me.
Yep.
Left no message, didn't text me, didn't answer. Then I called back again. I didn't answer. And then I got a phone call with somebody like yelling at me. It was like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, Wyclef John called you 2 times and you didn't answer once. I was like, why would I?
How would you know?
Exactly. That's what I said. I was like, no one told me that. He was like, next time he's going to call you, answer the phone. And then I answered. And then me and him had like a long conversation, and then it eventually led to me like meeting him and like going to his house and like having like one of the coolest talks ever, which I felt like then changed how I made music, because like being able to sit in the studio with him and watch the way he works. Cause I feel like my early music, I wasn't like really layering it. Like I felt like it was just like one vocal, maybe dubs or something like that. And like, I didn't realize how much stuff you can do and like pocket it in. And then like was sitting in studio with them. I'm like, wait, how many layers do you have on this song? I'm like, these are just your vocals. And it would be like 30 something like layers of vocals. I'm like, how do you even hear all that? And then he was like, what? And then they would like edit it and like layer it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then I started like studying like music even more and like harmonies. Cause my dad also was like, once he stopped like touring and stuff, he was a professor at Berkeley. So like, even just like, watching him, like I never studied music theory or like anything like that. So with him, he was always like, it's crazy you're able to do this stuff you do with never like studying music. You literally, he was like, you study
it's in the blood.
He was like, you study music by like literally studying music.
Like
he was like, you don't study music in the like original sense where you like go to a class and like you read up these things. He was like, you literally just listen to artists you like or like old music and like literally listen to the melodies and like try to like count how many layers are in it, and I find like the pockets and weird things you can do with your voice. That's why like I've always loved like Andre 3000s and like Kanye's, where you can see like or like even like Kendrick, where like, or Childish Gambino, how like they use their voice like instruments, where you can like make noises and harmonies and add effects to them, and then it becomes part of the beat, and it's just like layered within there, and all like whether it be hummings like Kid Cudi and stuff like that. But to just like keep going, that's pretty much what it was. It was that dropped, and then it was the freestyle in school. And then I was like, after On Top came out and like the response was like kind of good. It didn't do anything crazy, but like for a first release that had no video, I was like, hey, like we're in the thousands. Like this is kind of cool. Like I've never put out anything ever. And I watched like classmates and stuff put out music and they do like 60 views and never move. So I was like, oh, this is cool. Tough. So then I was like, all right, I'll put out something else. And I put out another one off the project, which was Wonder Why, which was themed off like Pineapple Express. And then that one got picked up by like blogs and stuff. And I was like, oh shit. Like, and like to see like people write about it and like really like the music, I was like, that's cool. So then I was like, maybe I should start like doing videos. And then I did my first one, which was I took a soundbite from like Wendy Williams to like, how you doing? Like, what you how you doing? And that's what it was called. And when I wrote that one, it was, I remember Lil Wayne dropped something at the time. And I remember someone being like, yo, it's crazy. He can just drop like bar after bar and it's just like dope. I was like, I mean, it's cool. Like I love Wayne, but I'm like, it's not that hard to do if you're like good at writing. You actually take the time to like think about what you're gonna say. Versus I'm like, it's not like he just sat there and just like was like it just merged. Like he actually put like some type of effort into it. Like I don't know. I feel like I'm like I could literally make a song like that where every line would be a bar and a hook and it would still be catchy. And someone was like, okay, do it. I was like, all right, cool. And then around that time, if I remember correctly, the dudes who made the beat were, I think they were called Up North Productions. They were those dudes who like ran up on like Mac Miller like years ago when he did that La La record, and they were like, "You didn't give us credit," and they went like viral. That was So randomly met them through one of my dudes. It was super random. Like I feel like I tell people all the time, like it's so random how much like many people I've met solely through the internet. Like not even. Like no relations, just random shit through the internet. So I had a friend who was making music at the time and they reached out to him. So when we drove up, he was like, come with me. Cause like, I don't want to meet them by myself. So we drove up to New York and went to this random house and we were there. But while we were there, he was just like, he would always do this. He'd be like, oh, by the way, he makes music too. Like if you liked him, he'd be like, he makes music too. He's really dope. They'd be like, all right, cool. Like pull some of your shit up. And I played them a record and they were like, oh, I played them, I think, On Top of Wonder Why. Those were the only two records I had at the time. And How You Do. Those were the only two records I had at the time, which I bought off of one of those like random like beat sites. I think it was like SoundClick or like something.
Probably this was when 2018 or something like that.
I don't even remember when I got them on there, but it was by like it was like the Johnny Giuliano era, like whenever year that was, and whatever 2000 was. So I had like a Johnny Giuliano beat. And so I forgot who made the Wonder Why one, but I played them those. They liked them, and then I went through their beats, and they gave him like a beat tape, and they were like, "Oh, if you want some, I'll throw a few on there for you." And they were like 3 beats. All the beats that I used were beats he didn't want, and then I remember I used them, and he was like, "Damn, I should have used those." Like, but when he heard them, he didn't know what he would do with them. And one was Coffee Shop, which was like a flip of Used to Love Her, kind of. Whatever, I forgot what beat Common sampled for that, but it was the original. They sampled that. And I used that for a record called Coffee Shop, which was like deaf poetry, like type bass, which was like the concept for it. Then there was the How You Doing record. And that Coffee Shop one was like another one that did like well. And it was like one of my early videos. And that one, like Jill Scott, like said something about it, hit me. And then somebody from like MTV. Nice. That was like, it was the blog, it was super blog area. So it got picked up by, what blog was it? It was like a blog that was like big at the time. I think it was like Good Music All Day. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And like at the time they were like one of those like collegey like blogs where like they were very tied in with like all the universities. So like if you had a record on there and it was doing like okay, it would just spread like super quick because like they had like hubs of like campuses who were all tied in, and then like people from those campuses who were in charge of like events a lot of times would then book artists they found on those sites. So I would watch people like blow up off of that site, like Raz Simone and like a bunch of people from like Seattle. I think Logic was on that site really early. It was like that one, and I think there was like fresh new tracks, and then you had like the super hip hop like rap ones, like the Pigeons and Planes, and like Two Dope Boys, and like Hip Hop DX, obviously Double XL and stuff like that. Those were, I feel like there was a period where like Double XL, obviously, and those ones are like forever. They're gonna go on forever. But all those other like sub-genre runs were like those, like, I look at it like kind of like those mom and pop shops that are like super dope that like no one really knows about. Yeah. But if you know about them, like they still do so much stuff under the radar and they're killing it. But because they're not like a chain in the forefront, it just, people don't like pay attention to it. But the people who knew were like, oh, like you can get numbers off of this, because then they're tied in with all these other blogs. And then if they do it, because they're like the top one there, all the other ones trickle down into them and will blow it up. Yeah. So then it was that, then Coffee Shop, and that did like more traction for me. And then I think that's around the time where I like lost all my music. It happened to me twice. There were 2 times where I lost like all my music. Oh man. Then that happened. And then I put out like Windblow and a few other records where like if you go on SoundCloud, they're still there. But then everything else is just like gone. So then it was like losing that and then being like, all right, now I'm gonna have to redevelop myself again. And I started listening to like new beats and then switching it up. And then during that time, I then met this dude Bees. He's like a YouTuber, and I remember I went to LA and I was like recording. I think it was like 2016. I met this dude named Bees. He was like a YouTuber. He goes by Bugatti Bees. And then that was like the first time I ever went to LA. I met him, and then we became super cool. And then I remember leaving, and then him being like, "Hey, I make dope music. You make dope music. I just got hit up to go on tour. You should come with me on tour." And then I feel like from that point on is when like I just started building relations with like so many other like artists, and then realizing the importance of it. And I met Futuristic like right before that. I met him in 2015, and I opened up for him and Sam LaChow in Providence. And then a year later, I was with Bees on tour with him and like Justina Valentine from Wildin' Out. Yeah, she's dope. And a bunch of other people. And this is like before she like took the fuck off. Yeah. So like this was like the year where like everyone was still like grinding, because like she like I think just got Wildin' Out at that point. So she wasn't like one of the stars in there yet. Yeah, she was like Cat Williams and everybody was still on it. So like everyone else was like way more famous. Like nobody knew really who she was. So there was that, and then just keeping relationships with her, and then like Zach. But then as time progressed, after the Bees thing, then I started pretty much just reevaluating everything and trying to like structure things and be like, what am I not doing? Because as you know, like every couple of years, like the structure of how we consume music changes. Absolutely. So it went from like the blog era to then like SoundCloud. And then after SoundCloud, then it was like streaming services, and it was like Spotify. Because we always had Apple Music. I mean, we always had iTunes. Yeah. And then it was like Apple Music and everything else. So then there was that period of me being like, all right, I got to figure out how to like put out music again, because I got so accustomed to being like, all right, like I had this structure, which I also think like hindered me for a little, which was taking like longer to put out music, not because you didn't have it, but because I got so used to the blog era and being like, all right, you make a song, then you got to type up a bunch of fucking emails. Exactly. Then you got to email 1 million people. And then you got to wait for them to get back to you. Yeah, exactly. You got to wait for them to get back to you. And then if they don't get back to you, you got to hit them back up again. Jeez. And then hit them back up again just in case they missed it, because they get so many. Yeah. So then, because I would watch other people, like my friends and stuff, and be like, how are you getting like views and streams? And I'm like, oh, because once I do the record, I then email ridiculous amounts of people. Yeah. Whereas like they would just put stuff up and leave it. And like I think a lot of people have this notion like, oh, if I just keep dropping music, it's like fine. Like I don't need to like do any marketing. Like this music is so dope that everyone's gonna hear it. And it's like you could be the best musician ever, but if you don't work as hard as making music as you do marketing it and like actually trying to put it out in the world, it's very rare that it's just randomly gonna fall into the right hands. Yeah, like it's like 1 out of a million. I've literally only met one person who's had that situation, which I literally met him when I moved to Boston recently. I'll continue what I was talking about. It's this dude who was signed to Pusha T, and he told me the way he got signed to Pusha T, and is literally the craziest story I've ever heard. He literally, this is before like he was beefing with like Drake. Yeah, he DM'd him and just said, "Yo, I promise you, I'm better than Drake. I can be way bigger than Drake." I guess that piqued his curiosity, and he actually like just like looked into him and went to his SoundCloud, and like 2 weeks later hit him up and was like, yo, you're dope. Send me some of your music that's not on SoundCloud. And the dude was just like, no. I'm working on like really dope stuff. I'm not just gonna give it you like music.
Dang.
Because he didn't know him, obviously. So he's like, what if he steals it? So he was like, I bet, where do you live? And he was like, I live in Boston. So he was like, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. And I guess he like booked a flight, came to Boston, and then went in studio, played him some stuff, and he was like, oh, this is really dope. And then he left, and he was like, then he hit me up a week later and was like, yo, what are you doing right now? And he was like, oh, I'm just like at the house. He was like, all right, cool, we're going to New York. Meet me in New York. Like, I'll pay for like a car or something to go there.
Yeah.
Then they did like, then he met with like people, and he had to play the music in New York. Then he was like, after that, then they took him to LA. Then he did the same thing. Then he was like, then he took him to like Paris. And then after that, he signed him. I was like, bro, that never happens. That's not how it works for every person. Yeah.
That is
and I was like, but he told me, and that's really what happened for him. I was like, that is like 1 in a million. Same thing with like Russ. Like, I look at people who like, even with like Russ, I love his work ethic. I love the way he works. I love what he did with like, when he was like, oh, I'm going to go on SoundCloud and drop this consistently. Because I know a lot of people who've done that, who that has worked for. So consistency works in that, because eventually like, but he's also promoting stuff. He actually was doing emails and sending stuff out. And then I have a homie, Nick D, who I met through TikTok, who was the same way. And he just had a viral record from TikTok, but he's been putting out music constantly and then re-pushing it through TikTok. So I was like, it's a constant thing. And I feel like a lot of people don't pay attention to that aspect of it. So that's pretty much what it was for me. It was like, after it's going on that tour was with like Bees and Futuristic and Justina, like I looked at the way like people like Devon Terrell and like Futuristic were like doing their own marketing, who are super fully independent. And was like, okay, I never thought to do this. And they were doing like stuff that I never did. Same thing with like Jordan Lucas's and like Tokens and people like that. And I started just looking at everyone's like blueprint and being like, well, what are they doing differently than I'm doing? I'm like, all right, well, I'm making music and it's good quality music. I'm like, but then I'm spending all this time then doing emails and putting all this effort in for like stuff which takes so much more time, especially when you're doing it by yourself, when you don't have like, when you're not paying like a marketer. Cause like I do my graphic design work. I'm like, I have a homie who records me and stuff, but like, even if I don't record with him, I then send vocals over, then they get mixed and mastered with him. I'm like, I direct all my videos. I'm like, I do my cover art. And then like, I was like, what can I do to delegate stuff or also just like make this move faster? And that's like, because I was always doing everything by myself, not realizing like there's nothing wrong working with other people and collaborating. So like, I was going years just doing everything by myself. And then I started watching like Zach, and then go from like 2016 to having like one of the biggest years he ever had. And I was like, well, what is he doing? What is Devon doing? And then I remember that was the period where they were doing remixes and covers and like constantly doing like one takes. And I was just like, and then also looking at like other artists who were doing like contests. And I just always was like, oh, I don't need to do contests. Like, what's going to do in a contest? Like, I make music. I make music. I don't need to do contests. Like contests are for like those people. Then I like sat and thought about it. And I was like, wait, that makes no sense. Cause like with the contest, like that's a bunch of people who don't know you. And that's all other eyes. It's also like opportunities to meet with like other people who don't know you. So it's just a giant hub of like random people who can find your music. And if they like what you do there, then it trickles everywhere else. So then I started looking at like people who I liked who were doing contests. I was like, oh shit, I never knew Jordan Lucas did this contest and won. I didn't know Token did this contest. I didn't know like this person did this contest before. So I was like, all right, cool. Or like even the Funk Volume contest with like Hobson and like Dizzy Wright. So I was just like, all right, maybe I should try one of them. The first contest I did, I won. And it was just like, okay. And that contest.
Oh, that's crazy.
Like it was crazy. That's what happened with Rapchat. The first contest I ever did on Rapchat, I won. And then I got flown out to LA and met Problem and like did a video with him. So
that's awesome.
It was just like the same thing. I just was like, all right, like this is a different version of like writing, because all the contests I was doing were very like rap oriented. And I was like, all right, well, I'm really good at writing songs, but like I also know like I grew up watching like Smack DVD and like I love battle rap and stuff like that. So like if it's just like a contest with rapping, I'm like, my favorite rappers can rap their asses off, like Lupe Fiasco, like Slaughterhouse, like all that stuff. But then my favorite type of music is like R&B, melodic shit, because that's what I grew up with like a dad who did jazz and was a musician. So in that realm, I just have fun doing that. Like I love writing freestyles or like doing that type of stuff. So pretty much after the tour with like Bees and Futuristic, there was a contest with Dizzy Wright. And I think that was right around the time when he started his Still Moving label. And it was called like the Golden Age contest. So it was all like boom bap type beats and stuff like that. So my thing was, I figured out strategies with that too. The same way I was with like marketing my music. I was like, all right, what's the best way to do this to be seen and like everything else? So then I thought of like Zach and like Devon and like what they were doing. I'm like, oh, like they were to put out more content. They were doing one take videos at one point. Like he always did music videos, but like one take video, you can shoot, you can do a song, you can mix and master, you can shoot a video for it the same day and have it out the same day if you're doing it in one take.
Right.
And then but the problem with one takes is like, because there's no cutting, if you're not interesting, it becomes the most boring thing ever. So like, and that's why one takes don't work for everyone. Because I've seen people like try to do one takes and be like, oh, this isn't working. And then they end up shooting extra footage. It's like, you have to actually be interesting. Like, because I've seen one takes where the camera doesn't really move and it's still interesting. But you just have to be interesting because it's you who have to keep the person's attention. But if you can do that, you'll keep them for the entire video. Right. And that will definitely make them want to watch another one because it's like you kept my attention doing just one shot the entire time. And being like a fan of movies and like directing my videos, like that was like my thing where I was like, all right, I'm going to make like a cool one take. I'm going to figure out how many times I can do movement. I want to do a lot of camera movement, but it still stay the same. So with that one, I also was strategic being like, which I used in every contest I've done ever since then, which is I pretty much will go, okay, when is the starting date? When is the end date? I will not post at the very beginning because I feel like if you post at the beginning, it gives people enough time to try to outdo what you did, even if they weren't going to do that.
So because just the video, posting the video.
Yeah. So like video. So like I'll do the song. Like a lot of the times I'll do the song, but I wouldn't do the video or anything until like a lot of time it was super last minute. A lot like the one I did for Deadshot. It usually would be like that. It would be because then you're trying to figure out where you want to go. And a lot of people rush and just put theirs out because they're like, oh, I want to be the first person out with it. And their mindset is like, oh, because I'll get the most views. So when you go to the page, I'll be there every single time you go there. Right. And it's like, maybe that might work for you, or like nobody will click on it at all because like they just don't want to help you. Yeah, whereas like if you're doing something and you're promoting it, like people are going to go to it. So then they'll see like your votes are going up. So they'll be like, oh, I'm going to go to that one. So with that one, I pretty much all the contests that were like rap oriented, I would pretty much wait till usually like days before. I always wanted like 5 to like set usually like a week. I always wanted like a week amount of span to get voting. That way, like even if I don't have the most votes, I would always get enough to qualify for the final round. I would always be like, I would look to see what the highest amount of votes were and be like, oh, if they're like, oh, we're only keeping the top 50, I'd be like, all right, what's this at? And like once the top 50 hit a certain amount of votes, I'd be like, do I think I could get that in a week, or do I think I should drop it now? And if it was a week, I'd go, okay, I'd leave it. What I'd always do is I'd watch like a handful of videos. I never watch all of them because it's just too much tedious, but just usually from like 5 videos, if there's 1,000 videos from like 5, you can kind of like grasp like the direction the average person is going. And from like watching them, I'd be like, oh, the majority of people are just fast rapping. Okay, I'm going to address that in my rap, and I'll write like an entire verse based off like things I did or saw in there. But I would also listen to people's like records and be like, your record doesn't sound like a record. It just sounds like a contest entry
that you just threw together.
Yeah. So it's counterproductive. So I'm like, so now after this contest, you can't use this because it's not going to be listenable. So that was another thing with contests. I was like, a lot of people keep tailoring their like contest entries to the contest. Whereas me, I was like, oh, I'm going to make something that if you know it's a contest, you'll know it's for the contest. But if you listen to this and didn't know it's in a contest, you would never know it because it's a dope record. So I have like one of my bigger records, which is Deadshot, was literally for a contest. Nobody knows that. And that's
crazy. Yeah. I did not know that.
Everyone who finds that, it's like, this is dope. And that was for a contest, which it's really funny how this happened. That's why I said the internet's pretty funny. So that record, Dizzy saw it. And then Demrick, who's on Still Moving, saw it. And like other people there. So I didn't, I won the pretty much he told me on tour. He was like, you didn't win the contest, but you won the contest.
Yeah. Like, so pretty much they were like contact information.
Yeah. So pretty much it was like, oh, like he was like, we talked about it and you were who we picked. Everyone unanimously was like, "Oh, you got picked." But
Yeah.
then I decided I wanted to take you on tour, and they were like, "Oh, you're going on tour with him? Never mind. He's already won. Like, if he's going on tour with you, like, there's no point in letting him win." So they didn't let me. And then I ended up going on tour with him, where I made more money than I would have made making the contest. I met way more people. Like, I met the dudes from Good Charlotte who like had their own record label, because they were
Good Charlotte.
Yeah, they were friends with the headliners of the tour, which were Hollywood Undead, super cool dudes.
Awesome.
And so I met them. I got like super cool with Demrick. That's like my brother now. Then I met Dizzy like several times, got his number from it. And like, I had a great conversation with him, and he was talking about the video. He was like, "Yo, you're going to be good. That's why I wasn't worried about you. Like, I felt like someone else could use it more than you could. And you were already going on tour." He was like, "So you lost the battle, but you won the war." He was like, "You're on tour. You made more money. You would have got flown to Vegas if you won. How many times have you been to Vegas on this tour?" I was like, "Twice." He's like, exactly. He was like, "Yeah, you're doing shows. Like, he's like, you're on tour for 3 months. Like,
yeah, that's the best consolation prize ever.
Yeah, probably. Exactly. And then I met like Dame from that too, like who used to work with like Funk Volume and everything.
Yeah, Dame
like,
Ritter. Yeah, shout out to Dame.
Yeah, super dope dude, bro. Super dope. Yeah. And I don't know, just even from there, like, it was just like a dope, because like I love experiences and like learning experiences. And from that tour, like, I learned so much shit. And then like even like seeing the behind the scenes on how like other artists work, and like what goes into doing like a huge like tour from that. Because the first one was like a smaller one, then to go on like this huge tour with like crazy musicians. And then from there, it was the same thing. Then I came back and was like, oh, I remember being on tour with Deadshot, and it was the same thing. I wrote it like a record, and the video came out, but because it was for a contest, everything was rushed. So like it did like, in the course of, by the time I finished that tour, I think it was at like 10,000 or like high 8,000 or 9,000 views. And then I remember the dudes from Hollywood Undead finding and be like, "Yo, you're dope. Like, you should put this out." It wasn't even on Spotify. Like, it was only on YouTube. And then like people kept hitting me up and being like, why isn't this on Spotify? And I was just like, I don't know. It was just for like a contest.
Just for a challenge.
Yeah, I was just like, I was like, I mean, yeah, it worked out. Whatever. They're like, "No, put this on Spotify." And I was just like, okay. And then Hollywood Undead was like, "No, you should really put this out." And that's when I started re-releasing stuff, where I was like, oh, if I felt like something should have done better than it was, I was like, there was something my dad said to me, and like Wyclef said to me, which was, just because something's old to you doesn't mean it's old to someone else. Because if they've never found it, then it's brand new to them. Right. So once I changed my mentality to that, I'm like, if I thought something was really dope, I would then like make it like unlisted or like private on my channel for a little bit. And then I would just email it. And that's when I started finding like YouTube channels and being like, oh shit, you can email these channels who have like a huge fan base. And if they like your stuff, they'll just put it up. Like, I was like, all right, cool. So I just started emailing Deadshot to like YouTube channels. And then Rap Nation picked it up. And then I dropped it on Spotify. And then like the algorithm just took it. And then it just started like, the first week it was doing like a couple hundred a day. And then like by day 7, it started doing like 5,000 views, like streams a day out of like nowhere. Wow. Just because like, I think because the algorithm was looking at it as so many outsources that like people were traveling from like not Spotify, but from links and going there, because that was like something I asked them to do. I was like, question, if I give you the link for this, can you put it in like the bio or like the info? And they're like, yeah. So I think like so many people were like clicking it that like in a short period of time that they were just like, all right, cool. And then the release radar and everything just took it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, so then I was like, all right, let's try this again. And then a one-take contest came about. So like I already did a one-take video, which wasn't even for a one-take contest. So then the new contest was like, oh, we want you to do a song in one take, and we want you to do a video in one take. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, because I love doing one-take videos. And like I thought the first one was good. So I was like, if people really like Deadshot and that did really well on Rap Nation, I was like, I gotta outdo that one. And then I like started thinking about like how Lil B used to like troll all the time and like name songs like Ellen DeGeneres.
That guy
like
is
Bill Clinton. Yeah.
He's a marketing genius.
He's a genius. Or like Hannah Montana. Like he just named songs after people. And I was like, who do I really want to work with that like, and if you notice, there's a few songs I have all named after people. Like I was just like, who do I really want to work with? And I was like a huge fan of Cole Bennett.
Yeah.
I still am, but I think he's a great director. And I was like, I want to get Cole's attention because I really want to work with him. So I was like, all right, so I'm going to use this one take contest for number one, marketing to bring in new fans. Also, if I win, I get like $2,500 on top of that. And then I get promoted on these other pages, which the producer was AKT Action. And like, I think his Facebook had like over like 500,000 like followers or something. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get posted there. Then it was like Futuristics page who had like millions. And then he had his IG, which like I almost got screwed out of this contest, which kind of sucked. So I'll tell you about it like towards it. So pretty much I shot it and was like, all right, I'm going to call this song Cole Bennett. And then I came with a whole concept based off of like the Bombs Over Baghdad video, Colorways. I just love that video, how it's like the grass is purple and like the trees are like orange and like the concrete's yellow, like just all this crazy stuff. So I was like, I want to do like super trippy like that. I was like, and I just got to figure out like the right beat. Cause that's the only thing that sucks with the contest is you're limited. But like, I've always felt like no matter like what type of beat it is, like if you can get creative with it, you can make anything sound like super dope. Mm-hmm. And then that was like the thing with contests too, is which to differentiate myself with people, I was like, all right, cool. Like, so even if we go song wise, let's say someone's like, even with me song wise, I'm like, my goal is to make sure that I just destroy you visually. And then if like, I want to do that song wise as well, but like, if I do it visually too, I'm like, then there's no chance. Like, there's no chance. And that's how I always looked at it. Was like, I want to do the best in all aspects. Where I felt like some people might go super hard on their record and then slack on their visual. I was like, with every contest, I always try to have like the coolest visuals. So with that one, we did a one take, and that video came about crazy because it literally was not even supposed to be at the location it was shot at. Somebody flaked on me last minute, and happened. I literally was like, was scrambling before the videographer came, and I was just like, it was the night before. Somebody canceled me literally the night before, and I had like a few hours, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna walk around the city and like drive around and try to find somewhere to do it. And I was hitting people up, and a lot of people scheduled didn't work, so I was like, let me just find somewhere outside. What's the weather gonna be like? And then my friend happened to
I was gonna say, you would never know watching the video. Like,
every video I did that was a one take was not in this right place it was supposed to be. Every single one. There's 3 one-take videos I have out, or 4. But the 3 that were for contests, every single one was meant at a different location, and somebody canceled on me last minute. That's insane. That one, pretty much, I went by and was like, oh shit, there's a giant vacant lot across the street from my friend's house. I'm like, this street also isn't on a main street, so I feel like I could just do random stuff here, and like no cars would come by and ruin the shot. Yeah. And there was also like a random boat like right across the street that nobody owned. So I was like, I'm going to use that. I was like, then I have a huge parking lot. It's a one take. I was like, I know I'm entertaining. So I was like, I could do cool stuff. And then it was just trying to figure out how to make your eye grab stuff. So I was just like, all right, what if I do it kind of like the Hangover movie? And it's kind of like me waking up in the boat. Like I knew what I was doing sonically, and like that I could have stuff tie in with it visually, but I just needed a way to get from point A to point B. And then also in my mind, I was like, how can I make it look like multiple sets in one take? And I was like, oh, if we just keep changing the camera angles. So that night, I literally was just walking around playing the music and shooting with my iPhone, just like walking around and figuring out when to turn and stuff. Yeah. And once it all came together, you have like what you have now, which is then even the panda head was just like something random. I was just like, I was like, we need more random stuff in this video. I was like, because it's just here. I was like, the set I had initially was awesome. Like there was paintings and it was so many rooms in like a building. And then so to be outside, I was like, I need more stuff. And I was like, oh, wait, I hit up my dude. I was like, you have a random panda head, right? I was like, yeah, bring it. I was like, what else do we need? And I was like, Lyrical Lemonade, Cole Bennett. I was like, I'm going to go to the grocery store and get like lemonade and like a bunch of lemons. Like, and then I brought like a fold out table and made a fake lemonade stand and called it Lyrical Lemonade. Yeah. And then like within it did like a scheme using Cole Bennett's name. And then that was like another one. I put it out, and then I remember I got hit up afterwards, and then Zach like congratulated me, but he like told me, and this is why I love him, because even though it's like because he was not gonna let me win at all, and he had nothing to do with me winning. He pretty much was just like, yo, I saw your entry and I thought it was like super dope, but I was like, yo, I know this guy, but we weren't even like really good friends at that point yet. Like we toured and like we were cool, but we weren't friends, like really, really good friends or anything like that. He's like, I know this guy. And then he realized, but it was a panel of judges. He was like, but then he realized, but I just realized nobody else on this panel knows I know him. He was like, so pretty much when he talked to me, he was like, so my mind state was, if it was down to a tie or a split decision, I was going to give it to whoever wasn't you. He's like, but like you won by a landslide. Not one person didn't vote for you. Every single person was like, yo, this is the best video. This is the best song. So he was like, that's the only reason you won. He was like, because I voted against you on purpose. And I just laughed. Because I remember like while the entries were going out and they would promote like ones they liked throughout the period of it, they never promoted mine. And I was like, he never posted it, he never liked it, he never did anything. I'm like, that's really weird. Yeah. And he was like, bro, I just didn't want to show you any love, because he was like, if you won, I didn't want you to think it was because like I just let you win. He was like, no, like every person voted for you. And then like everyone who was involved in the contest like hit me up afterwards. That was the first time I talked to like Kato or like AKT or any of them. And then like with that one was like another boost for me, because then it dropped on 2 channels. It dropped on Promoting Sounds. And then like I went above and beyond to get it to like Cole Bennett. I was like tweeting it to him. I was tagging him in like every post. I emailed him like a bunch of times. Then out of nowhere, he like just emerged in the comment section and was like, oh my God, I love this. Then like Lyrical Lemonade posted my next record. Yeah, Black Jason Siegel, which was another one, which then Hip Hop DX picked up. And it was just like the name alone. I remember they did like a show called like the Litmus Test. And like if you won, they would then post you on Hip Hop DX and stuff like that. And I remember I've always been big on like cover art and like everything else, because all my favorite artists had that. Like Kanye always had like super dope cover art. Like Tyler the Creator had super dope cover art. Lupe. Yep. And like I felt like it was like something people slept on. And I feel like it's the same way with like CDs or like anything, or like even going to like a meeting, where it's like if you show up to a meeting in a suit versus pajamas, like you're probably going to be treated completely differently. So yeah, facts. So that was like, even like coming up, like we were talking about, that was another thing. So like as every year went by, I just went really hard in each aspect. Because if you look at my early cover art, it was never bad, but it was like when I was learning Photoshop, so I'd use like images and play with them. Then like I always could draw, so then eventually it was like learning how to like turn drawing into doing digital art, and then being like, oh, I'm going to do this now, and trying to make your artwork different from everyone else's. Because I know even with like the Hip Hop DX thing, it was the same thing. Where the first thing, like just like with the Little B we were talking about, like the marketing, it was usually the names of the songs would grab people, like Cole Bennett. Yeah. And then even with that, like I would get hit up by random people who would find me and be like, yo, I found your video by accident. It's super dope. I just was searching Cole Bennett and I thought it was one of his videos, and I saw it and was like, oh shit, this is dope. And I found all your stuff. Yeah, that's actually how I found it so many times. Yeah, that was the first video of yours I saw. And then you posted it on Rapchat. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize like this was the same person. Like, that's dope. That's what happened with then I had a record called Sway Calloway, where I was like, yo, I want to do Sway in the morning so bad. Yeah. And like that one, it was the same thing. That's the only one that didn't reach like the person that it was meant for. That and Black Jason Siegel. Like I still want Jason Siegel to hear that. Like I love Jason Siegel. That's fucking hilarious to me. But that's really what it was. So like even with Hip Hop DX, it was the cover art. So with like making music and coming up, it was just like adapting and learning like everything. And then not to get sidetracked, it was just like I said before, just following. I started just following people's blueprints. So with Zach, I remember I had a conversation with him and was like, I watched what you and Devon did, and I was like understand the covers and the remixes and everything. And then like I said before, I wasn't really collabing with people like other than like producers. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, that's a big thing, bro. He was like, if you look at the way I came up, he was like, look at, I Guess I'll Smoke. He was like, Dizzy, like, he was like, I put Dizzy right on that. And now like Dizzy gave him a great verse. And that was like peak Funk Volume era. That was like when Dizzy was like killing it. He still is killing it. He's super dope. But like Zach was like not as known as him, and he was doing the Funk Volume contest. That's how he met Dame and like everyone else. Yeah. So I followed his. That's pretty much what I started doing. I just started following his blueprint of how Zach and like came up. He was like, I was doing contests, I was doing collabs, I was doing everything else. So I was just like, all right, cool. I'm gonna start doing literally everything you did to try to like build my buzz up. And that's when I did the ZZ remix over the Kodak thing. Yeah. Then like I started doing the contest where like I did his contest. I did the Dizzy Wright contest. And I did the Kato contest. Then I did another contest with like Kato and other people. And I was just doing contests all the time. Then COVID hit. And then as an artist, it's like, all right, cool. We're not touring anymore. We're not doing anything. How do you do something now? Huge. And that's when that's like, I like around the time when I started getting back on Rapchat. Cause like I was on Rapchat before for the contest, and then I really wasn't active on it anymore. Then COVID hit. And I was like, maybe I should take this time to just like build up all my socials and figure out how to like use them. So I just looked at it like, all right, well, the first thing I did on Rapchat is at like 40,000 like plays. Like maybe I should go back on there. Yeah. And then once I really started using it, like within months, like my following just went up. Like I went from like think like 1,000 followers to like now, and then like still in COVID, I think I'm over like 15,000 because I just started dropping records all the time, and then like random contests. Then I got on like TikTok and was like, that was another thing where I was like watching Zach and like how other people post content. I remember at one period he had a day for every type of content he was posting, like flashback for Freestyle Friday, Throwback Thursday. He posts like an old video of his. Tuesday, talk to me Tuesday. And I was like, that was something I always struggled with, which was like, what do I post? Like, I'm not dropping a song every single day.
Yep.
And then I watched my homie Larry, who I actually have so many songs with. I watched him, and I was watching like Gary V and like Kato.
Larry
and
O.
He took, that's my guy. Like, that's my brother, bro.
Larry's awesome.
So I watched his come up too, where he was the same thing. It was just consistency. Like the way Russ was with music, Larry was like that with his Instagram. He was like,
crazy.
I'm going to post a video every single day and see what happens. Then he took like the branding of Gary V, where Gary V was like, I remember watching the video and being in studio with him being like, you follow Gary V, don't you? And he was how do you know? He was like, how do you know? I was like, bro, because there's a video he posted where he was like, people need to understand their branding and like niche market. He was like, the problem is everybody wants to be like a giant influencer. He's like, but there's so many people trying to do that. And if everyone's doing the exact same thing, the chances of someone finding you in this giant sea of everyone doing the same thing is really small. And there's already people going to the main people who are killing it. They're not going to go to all the lower tier people and find you. He's like, but if you can find that one thing that no one's really doing or a small market's doing, and then you do it better than them, he was like, you'll grab you like a core following. But like, because what you're doing is so good, they'll share your stuff. And the more and more people find it, eventually there's a tipping point and then you start going crazy.
Right.
And that's what happened with Larry. He was just like, I'm going to teach people how to do one thing a day in a minute, because YouTube videos are like 15 minutes long and no one wants to watch that for that long. So then he did it. And I remember like the first month he had like a little growth. And then he was like, all right, well, if I see growth, I'm going to keep doing it. And they did it again another month. Then I remember there was a period where he did like 100 like followers, like in like a week. And then after that, he just kept going. And he was like, all right, I'm going full force in this. And he just went crazy. So it was kind of like the same thing. And then like, I would do random stuff and he'd be like, yo, you should stop posting like freestyle videos, but like with captions. Because if you have captions, people will watch and go over it. And then periodically, that's when I found TikTok. And I was like, okay. So then I looked at it, was like, oh, wait, there's people on here who like already make beats and you can just like duet them and use your headphones. Like, you know how fast you can just bang out random content. I was like, this is the best way to just put out content like when I'm bored. When I'm like, I have nothing to post today. I'll just go on TikTok. Let me find a beat I like or a random video and I'll just freestyle over it real quick, put it up. And then I constantly had content. And then like other IG pages would just start picking it up, where I would have records that would do like 40,000 off of something I made off of Apple headphones and like my phone that took no effort or like little effort. And I'm just like, this is insane. And then with COVID, then it was another thing where it was like, I feel like so many people had free time. So there were celebrities constantly always on Instagram going on live. Yeah. So then that became my new thing where I'm like, oh, I'm just going to start hopping in people's lives and try to like do stuff.
Yeah. They'd be like, who's this guy that's always in here?
So like, I would just like hop in and it'd be like, do you know DJ Head?
No, I don't know DJ.
Oh, he's dope. So have you ever seen Rhythm and Flow?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's the DJ on Rhythm and Flow. He was the DJ for the Cypher. Like he works with like everyone. He's a radio host. Super dope dude. So he was doing these things. Like they were all, and I noticed there were people from like Def Jam or everyone else. People would always say like, yo, this chick from Def Jam does these like talent show lives, go in there and like kill it. Like, and then you'll get like even more followers. And I kept getting followers from hopping in people's lives. So then I hopped in DJ Head's live and he used it for content. So for him, he was like, oh, I can have content. So if you sucked, he just make fun of you. And like, if you're really bad, he would like really make fun of you.
Yeah, smart.
So before he started, he would just be like, are you cool with criticism? Can you take honest criticism? And then like, if you said, yeah, he'd be like, all right, cool. And he'd play your stuff. But he's so funny too. Like I remember there was one, he literally just shut his laptop and like turned off his screen because somebody was so bad.
Dang.
But I was like, I really want to like work with him or like do something with him. So like I went in his thing and he said it to me and he saw Cole Bennett and like it's still on my page and he like lost his mind. He was like, this is crazy. And I gained like followers from that. Then same thing like Mr. Fab, who like I was listening to since I was younger, like from the Bay. he was doing one and he was like, oh, go in. And then like after that, he followed me and then other people started following me. And then the TikTok stuff, like I said. And then I also found 4 Bar Friday with Damian Lillard. And at that time, he was doing like partnerships with like Genius. So then I was like, oh, this is another hub I can do during COVID. So it was just constantly like, I feel like the come up is constantly just adapting to like things and being like from going from a blog era to then a streaming era to then SoundCloud and being like, oh, now I have to drop stuff on SoundCloud. Then Instagram emerges and you're like, oh, you can't just be on Twitter and Facebook. You now have to get an Instagram. And
Instagram,
then
TikTok, and
you have to have everything. So then being like, then TikTok become the new wave and being like, oh, I don't want to be on TikTok. And then you're like, but wait, even if the stuff doesn't like, there's like watching friends who like have blown up on TikTok and then being like, wait, so even if you're just, I feel like TikTok is kind of like the lottery where like the algorithm is very much in favor of the creators more so than like Instagram, where like it's way easier to go viral on TikTok, but it's also super hard to go viral on TikTok at the same time because the way the algorithm is set up on TikTok, if it doesn't go like within the first 24 hours, it may not go at all, but it also can go 3 months
3 weeks later,
like, because you may be because you may be ahead of a trend that didn't start yet, that then a big creator starts, and because you did it with the hashtag that wasn't being used yet, it then takes off. So it's literally insane. So I feel like that's what it is. It's still going up and just figuring out what works. And then this year for me, it was pretty much like I said, it just was like, oh, what wasn't I doing? And then I just started doing like collabs and stuff and like working with artists who I already built relationships with. Because for me, like I don't like working with people who I don't feel like I can hang out with. Like if that's so like, I don't know if you're the same way.
No,
but
absolutely.
Like if I like talk to you and then I don't care how much I like your music, if I feel like I can't hang out with you, I'm like, I don't want to work with you. Like it's just weird.
It's not worth it.
Yeah. I'm like, it's weird.
You don't want to end up having to go on Oprah with that person one day and then you're like, I don't even like this person. It's weird.
Yeah, or just like random stuff. So like that's why like when I did the record with Zach, like Pick It Up or with Devon, like I was like excited to do them because I'm like, I wanted records with these people like forever, but it was like waiting till the right time where it made sense and not trying to force like things in relationship you built. Like, cause also like I met Zach in 2015. I didn't drop a record with him till 2021. Like, so it's just like same thing with Devon. I met Devon 2016. I didn't drop a song with him till 2021. Like, it's just same thing. Cause like I never wanted it to be like, oh, like you're just asking me for a feature to like work to help your numbers or like do something. I was always just where I just never cared about that. I was like, if it makes sense, it makes sense. I don't want to force stuff. And then at that time, I also was like, I want to make sure I already have songs that are over these amount of like streams or something, so that it doesn't look so that like if you look at my numbers, it's never like, oh, the only reason you hit this number is because this person's on the song or because this.
Exactly.
Whereas you can go on my catalog and be like, oh no, he's done it multiple times before he ever did any songs with anybody. And that was like another thing too. Like that was a goal. I was like, I don't want to do a record with like anyone else so I can at least break this ceiling. And then after that, it's for me, it's just like, all right, now at this point, leveling up. And then, like I said to you before, being like reaching a point where you just really like the content you're making, you're confident with it, you love it. And you're like, all right, cool. I'm good enough to do records with these people and like it not be like a one-sided record. Because no one wants a record. Like my thing is like, I just like when I make, there's a difference between like rap records and records. So for me, I'm like, if it's a record, I want the song to constantly go like this the entire time. I just want it to just keep going up, like as you're listening to it. I don't want it to go like you listen to like my verse and it's like this and the next person just falls off, or like it goes up on one person and thing like that. Yeah. So I'd rather take time working on a specific song with like an artist that I think would make sense versus like hitting up a random person I don't know for a feature just because they're bigger than me. And then like it either doing well because solely they're on it, or it not doing well because they did it for the money because we don't actually have a relationship, so they don't want to push it or do any type of promo, and it does nothing.
Or it does well, and the fans of that artist that you collab with don't resonate with the track, and they're like,
exactly. They're like, it was weird.
Yeah.
So that's honestly what it's been. It was just like going from like random opportunities, building networking. And that's honestly what the story, I think if there's anything I missed that you want to hear, I guess that's what it was. It was pretty much just like going from growing up around music freestyling and then turning that into like actually writing, which I was doing already, but just not musically, then pretty much putting in 10,000 hours, which then ended up with like meeting other artists who have been fans of my whole life. And then from there, that I guess pushing you even more, and then honing in on like all the other talents I had, but then realizing like you don't have to do everything yourself.
Right.
So being like to the point where I know what my capabilities are as an artist, like whether it be visually or artistically or drawing, but then being like, all right, well, if I know I can draw this, but this is going to take X amount of hours out of my day, I still have to make music. I still have to write a video treatment for this. Why not just find someone whose artwork I like, but take my ideas and concepts and have them facilitate it? No different than like when I get tattoos. Like when I get tattoos, I don't draw my tattoos. I do draw them, but I'll like explain what I want because I have a reference in front of me. But then the person whose art style I like, I'm like, but I want you to do what I did in your style. And that's how I look at it. So like, even if you look at the 3 a.m. cover art, it's like top to bottom, those are like my ideas. But my homie Yurt from like Norway destroyed that cover art. Like every single thing I wanted, because I love her style of drawing. Yeah. Same thing with like a new one I have coming out called Bad Habits, where like the concept I had, she drew exactly, but it just looks so dope because like I understand like strength and weaknesses. And that's how I feel like there's some artists who get it and like some who don't, where like I have friends who I'm like, oh, why are you mixing and mastering your own stuff? I understand everybody doesn't have money and obviously you can try to do it. But if you realize like that's just something you're not good at, like practice doing that while you have someone else doing it. If you're trying, since you're putting this music out, I'm like, because at the end of the day, like, you want it to be the best quality that you can get. Even like, that's not saying you have to spend $1 million or like anything crazy. But if there's someone you know or someone who can do it better than you, like just have them do it until you get to the point where you're like really good at it or like decent enough where like it's good for public consumption. And I think that's what the woman is it BWE? Is that what it is?
Yeah. You're talking about Karima Dima. Yeah.
Yeah. Where she was talking about where she was like people putting out 100,000 songs and then like, you have so many on it that by the time I check out your stuff, I may not end up clicking on your recent stuff. So if I click on your old stuff, I just don't want to listen to anything else. And I've met people who are like that, who I've heard their music and have been like lyrically and flow wise, it's like in sonically and writing wise, so good. But the mix is so bad that I never want to listen to it. Where I'm just like, you need to have someone else mix it. Like, oh no, I'd rather mix it myself. I like the way I work. I want to work with other people. I'm like, all right, cool, man. It's not going to do well. Like the bass is too high, your vocals are too low. It's like messed up. Like, but then like I've had them turn off the beat and be like, can I just hear what you're saying? And then turn off and I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. It's just your vocals are then super muddy. And it's just that. It's just realizing your strengths, your weaknesses, and figuring out what you're really good at and then just honing in on that. And I feel like that's really like what changed the most for me was just being able to delegate power. Before I got so used to doing everything, like I said, and it took so much time to release music because of that. Because if you're doing everything, you have no time to do anything. So,
and I feel like, that's a great point. It kind of leads into, my next question. And you talked through it throughout, this entire episode, but I don't think independent artists especially realize, how much work it takes to build your fan base, grow your brand, and put out music that people want to listen to. So like what advice would you give up and coming artists or independent artists as far as like the amount of work they have to put in? I know you talked about the emails you used to send out, and I feel like today
I still do that, bro.
Talk about that a little more, because I think that's something that's important.
Yeah, so I think I tell people all the time, like YouTube University is your best friend. Like even like TikTok, like there's stuff I found on TikTok that I didn't know you could do. Like, which I found this before, but not to the extent. Like there's all these random like cheat codes for like Spotify, like playlists. Yeah. Where like you can go on the search bar, type your genre where you think that song fits with, and just write @Gmail in the search bar, and every playlist that has a Gmail attached to it will pop up. So you can just copy those, make like
that's a major jam.
Yeah, make like in a notepad or like a grid. Like what I'll do is I'll write the name of the playlist, I'll write the amount of followers in that playlist, and then I'll write the email. So that when I email them, I know who I'm sending it to. But like that's just already so many chances of you do it. Then there's SoundPlay, which is free submissions. I feel like there's so many people who just put out music and like you just hope, like, don't get me wrong, if you have a big fan base, it's
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
you have a really good chance of it doing. With some me, like, so when I talk to artists who like are bigger than me and they're like, oh, these are the numbers you did on these ones. Like, how'd you do that? I'm like, bro, I literally go on SoundPlay and submit until it tells me I can't submit for like an hour. I do that. Like when I first drop a release, that's all I do. I'm SoundPlay everything. Because I understand that like, even if these playlists are only generating like 10 or 20 streams, the algorithm just is looking at, oh, he's being added to so many playlists. And then those are random streams that are coming thing. And that's like, my goal is always to get the algorithm in my favor, because then the algorithm does the work for you. So it's like, then like, even though you're still doing the work, it just keeps moving off the strength of your interaction and everything like that. So I think as like independent artists, you just have to like, you have to do more work than other people because you may not have a team yet. So you like also like if you do know people or like you are like befriending people, like, which is what I've done. Like I have so many random friends I've met through like TikTok and Instagram and like music friends who I'm solely friends with on Instagram, but friends with them for like years. And like anything I ask them, they just tell you. Like there's some people, and I feel like those type of artists, I feel like a lot of independent artists are more willing to give you gems than like known artists. A lot of people just want to keep stuff for themselves, but I tend to find that a lot of independent artists, as long as they can see you're actually like putting in work and you're just not trying to get like a cheat code, they'll like just tell you.
Yeah.
Whereas like with my friend Jitta on the track, super dope dude. Like he does visuals, everything. He's a musician. He like does animation, everything. I remember that's when I started doing my own cover art. I was just like, yo, these are really dope drawings you're doing. Like what app are you using? And he was like, oh, it's Sketchpad on desktop. It told me, and I was like, all right, cool. Then like start using it. If I had any questions, he just told me, or I would YouTube them. So like then from there, that's when I started doing all my cover art. When it was like drawn, it became from that. Same thing with like when I was editing videos, like, because I know how to video edit, but I stopped doing that after a while because I was like, it's taking too much time. Like I'd rather just have someone else do it. So when I would do videos, I would direct them and then I would edit them from the far. Like I'd just be like, all right, like while we're on site, I'm directing everything. Then I give it to the person and I already had a treatment so they know what I want. Then once they send me the rough, I would watch it and be like, I need this here, this here, this here, this here. And then cool, that's gone. They're going to edit it. And then I can go back to making music or doing emails or doing whatever else I'm doing. So that's what I think the most important part is, where it's also being smart with your money as well. Because like when you're independent, like you may not be working with a budget yet. So you're working off of the money you're making and just being smart with it. So for me, I remember like even like the Deadshot video, like every video, like I said, the one take video, like every single one, something went wrong. So with the Deadshot video, the guy showed up and he didn't have a steady cam for his camera. So I was like, bro, this is a one take. Like if you don't have a steady cam, it's going to be so wobbly and it's going to look so bad. Yeah. But so then he was like, oh, but I do have this. And he had like a random stand for his iPhone. And I just was like, honestly, shoot it on that. I was like, clean up your lens. Yeah. I was like, I've seen a Kanye video on the thing. I was like, this with a steady cam will be better than your camera, which is a better camera that's loose. I'm like, and I've seen and it was honestly, like I said, just learning as an artist and being like that tour where I was on with Futuristic and like people. There's an amazing videographer. His name was Wozy. And I remember being on tour and his camera dying and him taking out his iPhone. Like he ran out of battery and we were on tour. Yeah. He took it out and I was like, are you really shooting with your iPhone? He was like, bro, I've learned to just do with whatever you have. If you have it, he was like, the magic happens in post. He was like, as long as you can just get something that's clean and not like, he was like, as long as it's not all messed up, I can finesse anything. So that's how I looked at it. And that was like every situation moving forward. It was like making lemonade out of lemons, pun intended, with a Cole Bennett. It was just like, I have this steady cam. If I give it to Wozy, he can do something. So the way he colored it, it looks so cool. Where like no one till this day, except when I told him, knows that video was shot on an iPhone. I'm like, that entire video was shot on an iPhone. And then we just added like bounce effects and stuff. Same thing with like Cole Bennett. It was like, I remember seeing a comment or something like when I won the contest and some dude was like, the only reason he won is because he has a video with Cole Bennett and he spent thousands of dollars on a video.
Dude, I thought the same thing. I'm like, this guy must spend like $600 to $1,000 a video.
Yeah, I was like, bro. And then like I'm like comment, back, I was like, yo, I appreciate that you think I spent that much on this video. That honestly like makes me so happy. I'm like, I literally, the only thing spent on this video were the lemons and the lemonade. That's in the video. That's the only thing I paid money for.
Insane.
I was like, I didn't pay for anything. I'm like, because we did everything in house, because like I directed the whole video. One of my friends who shot like weddings and stuff, I was like, yo, you have a steady cam, right? And he was like, yeah. I was like, yo, can you just give me like an hour? He was like, bro, I can give you an hour. I was like, I won't even need that much. We'll bang the whole thing out in probably 3 takes, because I would go to locations for 1 takes. And every time he did one of my 1 takes, he always gave me an hour. He's like, bro, you have an hour. You have an hour. That's all you got. Like, I got work. And he would do it as a favor to me. So you got an hour. So I'll go to the location like the day before, and I'll just do walkthroughs by myself and get used to it. So I already knew what I wanted to do and be like, all right, I want to sit here at this point. Where just like, because I already walked through with the camera doing it myself with no one in it, or I'd put people in it and be like, walk this way. So I'd figure out the path. So the mechanics of what I'm doing aren't down, but I at least know the path to where I'm going.
Right.
So every take is always different, but it's like, I know what path I'm going. Once I know the path, I can just do that. So same thing with that. I was like, the Deadshot video, I'm like, the only money I spent on that wasn't even on the video. It was for the food I bought for the dude to thank him for like shooting the video. Like, I bought him, like I took him out to dinner. I'm like, same thing with the other one. I'm like, I paid for the lemons, paid for the lemonade. Everyone else in the video was my friends. Same thing in Deadshot. It was just my friends. I just said, be like, yo, do you have me in the area? Hey, just come sit in. I just need you as a prop. So then when the dude found that out, he's like, wait, so you only paid for simply juice and lemons? I was like, that is the only cost I spent on this video. I was like, everything else was done in post. I'm like, my dude did the editing, and then I did some editing, because that was when I was still doing editing. So I'm like, I did all the captions for the Cole Bennett video, like I went in Final Cut, did those. I did some coloring. I did the vignette on the screen. Like, I'm like, I was like, everything was done in house. And then I remember there's a chick I found on TikTok who's like that too, where she said she was spending so much money on videos that she just went on YouTube and just started teaching herself how to edit. And I was like, yeah, that's honestly, that's how I've managed to save money on a lot of videos. Like, I was because I knew how to either edit or because I knew how to direct or shoot, to the point where I could take one aspect out, where it's like, sure, I may pay for editing for this video, but I'll cut costs by shooting the entire thing and directing it, so that the person doesn't even have to so that the person doesn't even either have to fly out here, and they don't have to shoot or waste any hours at a time. So then they'll only charge me to do like effects. And if I don't need a lot of effects, then I usually have like a homie or myself who could color it. Like, I may color the whole video, then send off and be like, oh, I just need these CGI effects, or like these type of green screen effects. And that's like it. So it was always that. And that was the same thing with like the Sway Calloway video. Like, someone else did the same thing. They were like, what did you pay? Like $1,000 for this? I'm like, no, I did the same thing. I had my friend show up. He gave me an hour. He was like, I got a wedding to go to. You got an hour. I was like, I planned everything out, hit up like and it was the same thing. Every location is someone who I knew. It was never like random locations. I didn't have to pay for the locations. So I knew like a bar that was below one of my friend's apartments. And then in the back, there was another bar, and they had a yard, but it's connected. I was like, oh, that'll look cool. What if I start in your apartment? Then I cut through the back of the bar, and like I knew everybody worked there. So I was like, can you ask your boss if you let me shoot here? And he made me show him like videos. And at that point, I already had Cole Bennett out, which had like both channels had like thousands of views. Deadshot had thousands, like was over like 40,000. So he was like, oh, I was like, and I'll like tag you guys. He was like, oh yeah. He was like, this is awesome. So he let me use that. And then they had the cool hallway. Then like I hit up him for his dog, everything else. So it's just, I feel like as an independent artist, you just have to be like smart with your stuff. Like, sometimes it's not the money. It's just like being creative. It's like, obviously you can do cool stuff with money, but I know people who've spent $5,000 on videos, and it's like, just because it was shot on a Red camera. But then I'll look at like other people's videos. Like, you look at early Tyler, the creative videos before he had any budget. And I'm like, you're shooting some of these on like VHS cameras, and it looks better than like what people are doing.
True.
So like the creative aspect is like huge. So that's what I would say the most to like independent artists. Just like try to find ways to stand out with creativity. Look at like what others have done before you. Like even like from the like Little B, like I tell people all the time, I'm like, bro, he was so creative. And if he was doing what Russ was doing before Russ was doing it, like he was dropping mixtapes, he was dropping songs every week, and he was dropping videos with each song. Like sometimes he was doing a song a day. Like it's just, but just like with I'll reference the chick again who you were talking to, where it's like it's still understanding your audience. He understood his audience, so he understood the type of content he was making would work for them. Whereas like if another artist who wasn't in his lane was doing that type of content, it probably wouldn't work. But he branded himself that way with like the bass freestyles and everything, so it did work. So for him, to put out that content was no different than like when Lil Wayne was putting out content. But I do understand like the aspect too, where like I do remember at one point I got tired of Wayne because he was putting out so much music at one point. Because for the caliber of artist he is, true. I don't know if you feel the same way.
No, never, because Wayne, Wayne's my guy, but I get the sentiment.
Yeah, he's so like, dope. It was a period where some of them were like duds. So I was just like, for me, I'm just like, put out so many dope ones. So I'm like, all right, man, I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna wait for an album or something, or like the drought to come out, because the droughts were always good. And certain ones, but then there were like so many loosies that were dropping that I was like, I'm
like, sorry for the wait. That was probably one of them.
Yeah. There was just like so many loosies and stuff. I was like, I'll just wait for albums. Even like Lupe, like I just every single artist, like I'd say like independent wise, it's just like look at the independent artists who you like, watch their like how you put it, their come up story or like what they did. So for me, like I just looked at Futuristic and Devon Terrell. Those were like the main dudes I looked at and was just like, oh, collabs, engage more on like I think honestly, he, when it comes to like marketing himself on Instagram, I think he's like one of the best I've seen with theirs. Even like Justina's pretty good at it too. Like she's really like good at her the way she markets herself online.
And Kato.
Like, but was that
Kato's
Kato's amazing. Crazy. Kato's amazing. Same thing with Larry. Like all of them, like I looked up to all of them and like the way they figured out what works for them and then just kept doing it. And I think that's also another thing, like as an independent artist, like where I think a lot of people, something works and then they do something else. It's like, no, keep doing the same thing. It's working. And I feel I've watched people who like have done something, been successful with it, and then I'm like, all right, cool. Now I'm going to change everything. It's like, why would you do that? Like literally, like it's working. Keep working. Like Pepsi doesn't change the way they taste. Coca-Cola still tastes like Coca-Cola. They weren't like, hey, people love us. Let's change how we taste now. Let's add like chili peppers to like our flavor. Like nobody cares. Like keep it the same. It's working. People love what you're doing. Keep doing the same thing. So like honestly, like I definitely wanted to talk with like you and Rapchat further. Definitely moving on from this, but I like next to me, like I have a project I've been working on, which is called Hendrix and Heartbreak. So I've like it's one of like many of them, but I pretty much the way I've been releasing it. I've had so many conversations with like artists about this, and this is another thing I'll say to like independent artists. I feel like we live in an era of singles. So unless you have a huge fan base, I don't feel a need to drop like a project. Like just drop singles, like and move off the singles. You can definitely drop a project if you want to, but the way like streaming services are set up, they're set up more for you to win off of singles.
The Baby is a key example.
Yeah. So if you drop an album, you can only submit one song to like the release radar. And if that song doesn't do well, then you just spent like months or years making a project that isn't going to move. Whereas I look at it like a dartboard. Like if I'm playing darts and each single's a dart, I have a way better chance of hitting the bullseye and something blowing up if I get to throw 20 times versus if I just throw one time and then wherever it lands, I'm done forever. Where it's like, you have each song can then trickle into that song, blowing them up. So for me, I've just been releasing singles. Every single I've released so far isn't on the project, but like 3 a.m. is on Hendrix and Heartbreak, Cool's on Hendrix and Heartbreak. I just look at it like even Joyner Lucas, I think when he had ADHD, I think he dropped 10 songs off of that project before he even dropped the album.
Yeah.
And did all of them as singles.
Yeah.
All of them. And I just think it's smarter. So for me, I've just been like dropping singles that are like loosies, like Pick It Up isn't on any project. I potentially could put it on a project. Maybe it will end up on like a more rap oriented project. But all the other ones, I'm just dropping stuff that I think will work, that people will like and they'll enjoy for songs I really like. And then I've been holding on to other ones that are just solely me that I think will do really well. So I'm using these as like leverage for those projects.
Yep.
But then I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Blast.
No, I'm not
like
familiar
the singer.
with that.
He's super dope. Definitely check him out. But I've watched how like some artists have partnered with like brands or like smaller labels to like partner with them to like move their stuff with like if they have like dope visions or dope music or have like or even if they don't have a following but the brand does, to help move it because they have relations with other people. And I know Blast was writing for like everyone. So I think like right now that's what I'm like looking into, and that's what's in the future. I've been talking to like certain brands and stuff. Rapchat's definitely one I want to talk to.
Awesome.
Where like I've wanted to like because I look at like there's like even when like at one point I was talking to Rapchat where like as an artist, like I look at the app and the setup of it and I like see things that I think would be more beneficial for artists for like allocating like all of your other socials together, where I feel like even though people are listening to music on Rapchat, I feel like a lot of people aren't able to transfer their Rapchat followers to their other hubs.
Right.
And I feel like there's like methods that would help make that way easier. Also, like I look at Rapchat like with all the, like it's just like an untapped, like flowing source of artists all there. Artists always want to find other artists. So like to be like a first artist who actually like partners with them, like in like a label sense, but not a label, to then have like backing and be able to do like cool stuff with like the network I already have and everything else, I feel like we would be able to do like super crazy stuff. So I'm hopefully do that, or like there's another brand as well. But like I look at like Red Bull, who went from energy drinks to now doing that with like artists.
That's
Vans
a great
doing that
point.
with artists.
Yeah.
And like they just look at it like, oh, we're Vans. People wear us, artists wear us. We can market to them. Like Red Bull, people drink us. We are at events. We can push artists. So to see the year Blast has had only being signed to Red Bull and seeing what he's able to do now, it's just like insane. So I look at it the same way, where it's like I know industry people and other people, and there's certain people I have access to that I know Rapchat also has access to. And like to partner together, I feel like I would be able to do like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So right now, So right now, that's what where the future like is looking like. I have like a project. It's pretty much ready to go. I'm still doing other features, and crazy one. Also, another thing, like I said, with independent artists, don't be afraid to reach out to the artists. I feel like a lot of people are very timid and like have fear of rejection. And then you have the other spectrum where people don't fear anything. They just spam everybody. Like, don't do that. Build relationships.
Yeah.
And like, that's what I will say about Rapchat, which is downfall. It's like, I've said this in posts, even on Loom, where I've been like, if you DM me and you actually have a conversation with you have like a 90% chance of me actually listening to you.
Especially if the music
if you just,
yeah.
I have people who just send me links to their stuff with nothing. They just send me a video, no concept, no caption, no like, hey man, how's it going? Like your stuff, nothing. And I'm like, even on Rapchat, like there was somebody sent me like 5 songs and just was like,
nothing. Just
listen to this. And I was just like, hi. He was like, did you listen to it? I'm like, nah, I don't listen to people who spam me links. I'm not spamming you. I'm like, you sent me 5 songs and did not say one word to me. I'm like, if you would have said anything to me, I would have listened to this.
Yeah,
I was like, 100%. Yeah,
I'm like, at least say, I'm an up and coming artist. I'm trying to grow. Check out my music. Like, it's not hard.
Yeah. So funny thing is, do you know Curtis King?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I found Curtis King because he hit me up like years ago when he had a project called Snick at Night. I wrote a tweet about Nickelodeon, and he was like, yo, I love this show too, or something around those guards. He was like, I actually did a project where I flipped those things, because he actually had a conversation with me. I was interested. I was like, oh, cool, that's dope. Send me the link. Like, I was like, that piqued my interest. I'm like, get a conversation with him. So I'm just like, bro, just like have conversations with people where like I met like one of my, like in my like artists who I've always wanted to work with, Travis McCoy's in there from like Gym Class Heroes. I met him before, but it wasn't like weird circumstances. So then I was like, oh, if it's meant to happen, at some point I'll meet him again. I met him on Instagram like last week, and then had like a great conversation for like 30 minutes. And then he like was like, oh, bro, we need to do a record. Just from that. That's why like
that's crazy.
The internet is like, you can meet anyone on the internet. Like, just like,
no excuses.
Actually have conversations. Don't spam people. I met Currency from Twitter. Like multiple people like I've met through the internet. It's just having actual conversations. Don't spam your shit to people. Have actual conversations. That's not to say everyone's going to answer, but you might catch someone on the right day when they're on like a live or something, which is how I got him. Got him on IG Live. So it's just like, just pay attention, do those, and then move smart. Like, that's why with me, like I looked at it was like, I don't know. Like, I know some people just want to be signed or do stuff. I've never really cared like what it was. I just felt like partnerships were the best way to do it. And watching like how my friends move. So that's why like, that's for me is like the next step. I just want to find like the right brand or like company to just like partner with to then push this content. Cause I already know like I built like a good foundation, and then I know like people who work in the industry who like really like my stuff. And for me, that I feel like that's the only thing I was missing was like a partnership or like a brand that could like do certain things for me that I can't do for myself, or have like certain backing that I don't have, which would allow me to like work with certain people who have other platforms, which could then push it because I have access to them, but I also would need certain things from like brands to like reach those access points. So I think that's the next thing where it's like, I feel like I'm getting a good grasp of Spotify. So it's still going to be just dropping consistently, like next for me, and continue. Like I have another drop on the way with Larry. Still just doing collabs and just like releasing stuff frequently and just like continue to build the brand up. Because I saw how fast I built up my Rapchat. So now it's just trying to build up everything else that fast, or just trying to convert the Rapchat following into all of my other followings. Like move those 15,000 plus people to my Spotify followers, move those 15,000 people to my Instagram, move those people to my YouTube, and watching the same way I watch Larry and other people do it. Because once you do that, you build like this little army. Like, I don't think people realize, I think it was Ryan Leslie who said it. He was like, I don't think people realize like the strength of like your following. If you can get those people to be active listeners or active followers, like you can do anything. Like 15,000 people on Rapchat, like listening to your song 2 times a day, that's already 30,000 streams in the first 2 days.
There you go.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you do that another 2 days, you're at 60,000. Like then you keep doing that. It's not, you can do 100,000 a week with just 15,000 followers. But like you have YouTube and stuff like that, but everyone on YouTube isn't an artist. Everyone on things there, like Rapchat is literally just rappers and producers. And like, then also watchers, like people who are just listening to stuff. So if you can get all of your followers who are either listeners thing to then just be like, yo, this can work and push you, like you can do whatever.
Tell the people where they can follow you at, where they can find you, all that good stuff.
Cool. Pretty much it's Kye Nathaniel everywhere, not like Kye Nathaniel everywhere, but just like at Kye Nathaniel. So like Instagram at Kye Nathaniel, Twitter at Kye Nathaniel, YouTube is Kye Nathaniel, Spotify is Kye Nathaniel. I pretty much made sure to keep the name the same everywhere, so it doesn't matter what platform you're on, find me. Even TikTok is Kye Nathaniel.
That's awesome.
Anything, Snapchat, because even at one point I was going by, I had Kye_Nathaniel. And then like, I was like, this is confusing, because then on certain apps that wasn't available. And then I was like, well, my name wasn't available initially, and then it started opening up. So I changed it everywhere. So my Snapchat initially was Kye_Nathaniel, and then everything just became Kye Nathaniel. So it's Kye Nathaniel everywhere. So on any platform you need to find me, just search Kye Nathaniel. No one else has my name. So even if you just write Kye, I'll usually pop up. So
there you go. Hey, I love it, man. Well, it's been a great episode. I appreciate you again. Definitely got to get a part two in, because so many gems, so much knowledge dropped here. So I appreciate you, man. And
you too, man.
Thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, definitely. Have a good one, bro.